My congratulations to Colombia. Your education system has undergone an extraordinary transformation over the last 15 years to create the foundations for prosperity and for lasting peace. Enrollments in both early childhood education and tertiary education have more than doubled over the period, and school life expectancy has jumped by 2 years. But the most spectacular success is that Colombia has been able to enroll more children and raise the quality of learning outcomes at the very same time. Between 2012 and 2015 alone, science performance among 15-year-old students rose by 17 score points on OECD's latest PISA assessment. That makes Colombia the 6th fastest improving education system among 72 countries that took part in the 2015 PISA comparison. Student learning outcomes in Colombia can now compare with those in Mexico and are clearly superior to those in Brazil. Perhaps most importantly, over the last decade, Colombia was able to reduce the share of students not reaching the baseline level of science performance by over 11%. And that's faster than any other country with comparable data. If Colombia can keep up that pace of improvement, your children born today have a good chance to match the performance of their peers in the industrialized world by 2030. That's the year for which the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals expect every student to benefit from quality education. That perspective is important because as Colombia joins the global community, its educational success will not just be about improvements by national standards, but about how Colombian children stack up to children around the world. For a start, Colombia needs to get its priorities right. Colombia's school system today will be Colombia's society tomorrow. In real terms, Colombia currently spends $24,000 per student from the age of 6 to 15. That's little more than half of what Costa Rica spends, and just 1/5 of what the United States spent per student. Colombia needs to invest more, and it needs to invest its limited resources wisely. Whenever confronted with a difficult choice between a better teacher or a smaller class, the most successful education systems tend to go for the better teacher. Colombia also needs ambitious, common learning standards that hold for all students across the country and that set high expectations for all students, regardless of their social economic background, regardless of the place where they live or the school they attend. Developing these standards can give the country a chance to define the knowledge, the skills, and the values that are needed in a new, inclusive Colombia. Second, all children should have access to education from the youngest age. The deep inequities observed by PISA for students in school, as well as in access to tertiary education. 9% of students from the poorest families are enrolled in university education, compared to 53% of students from the wealthiest families. Those inequities begin before children even start school. Prioritizing access to early childhood education for the most disadvantaged children and ensuring that all children start school by the age of 5 are the two most important ways for Colombia to bridge this opportunity gap. Third, teachers need to be empowered to lead this transformation. But that can only happen when they know what is expected of them and when they get the support they need to teach effectively. More frequently than elsewhere, Colombian school principals say a shortage of qualified teachers or the lack of educational resources hinders learning. Also, the percentage of students who had repeated a grade is still the second largest among all countries in PISA. And yet, PISA results show clearly that grade repetition is not only ineffective, but it also demotivates students and it's costly to the system. Teachers in top-performing countries embrace high professional standards and work together to give each other feedback and support to improve their teaching practice. Professional autonomy in a collaborative culture in turn creates the conditions that are most conducive to student learning. Fourth, investments in education will yield the greatest return if students leave education equipped with the skills that the economy and society needs. that requires cross-government collaboration to define clear education trajectories and qualifications, to help students make informed choices about their careers and build effective partnership with future employers to expand training. Such reforms must be a priority in rural areas, where stronger links between education and work will be the linchpin for development. None of these steps are easy, quick, or inexpensive. But only with them and with a clear and shared vision for the future of its education system will Colombia be able to reap all of the benefits of a hard-won peace. And Colombia has one big asset that few of your neighbors have. That's the capacity to ensure coherence in education policy over time and across the political spectrum. And the capacity to strive for consensus on educational reform without compromising the drive for improvement, with strong involvement of stakeholders to cultivate joint ownership over policies and build consensus over both the need and the relevance of reforms. That provides a very strong basis for building on the encouraging improvements in PISA 2015 to build a world-class education system. The OECD will join you in making that happen.